When most people go to new cities, they're looking at the buildings, but half the time I'm looking at the sidewalk.
I'm Julian Beever, street artist. In this series, I'll be transforming pavements in cities around the world with my 3D chalk drawings.
Oh my gosh, you can actually see like the wings are raising up.
Plus, revealing the secrets of how I do it.
Even faster, you can pour on powder. Rub it all in.
And tracking down the world's most prolific street artists.
I think the thing about street art is not defined by one thing, it can be anything.
I've arrived in London, Britain's historic capital city.
I always love coming to London to do a drawing, especially when it's somewhere near this lovely Thames waterfront and one of the best views in the whole of Europe, I'd say.
But even in midsummer, the British weather can be unpredictable.
The thing all pavement artists dread is that little ding, ting, ding, and sometimes you imagine it, you think it's raining and it isn't. But I just felt a couple then, I'm sure I did. There's lots of things to choose from in London as subject matter, but the thing I've chosen, which really gets me, and I think really shouts London, is Big Ben. All tall objects are difficult to draw three-dimensionally, and that's no exception. And also the clock face, I think, will be demanding.
So I've got my subject matter, now I've got to find my pavement.
The reason I've chosen this street to draw on is because we have this beautiful backdrop of St Paul's behind that way, and over this way we have the Thames, the Millennium Bridge and the Tate Modern over there. And there are lots of passers-by, which always makes things more exciting, and on top of that, a lot of them are interested in art, which is why they're going to that building anyway. What I've been trying to do here is look for a spot where I can incorporate various items of street furniture or walls into the drawing so that we have a vertical and a horizontal. And what we have is a wall, and I'm going to use this edge here right along to this edge as my front surface. We can even get a second side coming from this edge that will all come in to make a big tower that goes from the pavement up onto the wall. And then I think I could get a really spectacular result. My only concern is that it's a bit bigger than I would have liked to have done, but that's a challenge. The drawing will only work when you look at it from this camera. Here, it's going to be big enough to have a real person standing in it, whilst at the same time it's not getting completely out of hand in size. That's about as big as I can do in 3 days. In fact, it's more than I can do in 3 days. I've really got to fight on this one to get it done.
But before I even pick up a piece of chalk, the raindrops start falling.
Actually, there is something you can do, which is to throw a cover over it. It might stop this ground getting wet before we start. Of course, if this was in the Tate Modern across the road, this would stand as a valid work of art in its own right, and I wouldn't have to do anything else.
London's street art scene is dominated by guerrilla art, a subversive underground movement spearheaded by the notoriously anonymous Banksy, whose satirical work, combining stenciling with graffiti, has received worldwide recognition. Banksy has single-handedly lifted street art to a new level, but do his fellow street artists see it as a good thing?
He's actually broadened people's horizons to what art is, but personally, it's not my cup of tea.
If you want to reach the most people, you really want to use a more universal imagery in a way, because it just makes sense. And that's why Banksy has done so well, because he's really got universal stuff that everyone can understand, but it's still got that edge of, you know, I'm mysterious, no one knows who I am, you know, I risk what I do to do it. It's cool. I like what he does. It's political and it says something, you know.
And he's getting paid lots and lots of money, and I hope one day someone will recognise me and I can get paid loads of money.
But back on my street, the rain has stopped and I can start drawing.
That's rain delay number 1. I've lost about 20 minutes there, which isn't too important, but let's just hope there aren't any more. The first day is always about marking in the construction of the drawing, the composition, usually in white chalk, just the outline. But this is the slow, difficult part of the operation, but it's important to get it correct. Once that's done, the rest follows a lot more quickly. To make an exactly straight line, I just put a bit of chalk along the string and twang. It's a technique that the old masters used to use, for example, Vermeer. There's a famous picture where you can see the pinprick in the canvas where he had his string tied to.
With the basic shape of the tower completed, I'm moving on to Big Ben's tricky clock face.
As I'm drawing the whole thing in a distortion, an anamorphic distortion, it's particularly difficult. One of the things I remember one of my school teachers said to me about art was that although I was good at it, I kept safely within my boundaries. And it quite hit me forcefully when he said that in my school report. And from then on, really, I think I, to some extent, tried to go outside my boundaries a bit more. And this is an example. I mean, I could safely go for a monument that didn't have a difficult circle in it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to try and go outside my boundaries just to get my own back on that school teacher. Do you want to take a look? Tell me if you think this circle's correct.
Don't quite know what I'm looking for.
Does that look like a circle on the same plane as that wall?
I'm probably not the best judge. Maybe
Well,
Haley's got a better idea.
I'm not either.
It doesn't look like a circle yet.
It doesn't look like a circle yet.
No.
Oh dear. Have to spend another hour on it then.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
Well, we've been watching you do this for about the last half hour.
Uh-huh.
It takes a long time to get the perspective right, it seems.
You're right. But this is perhaps the most difficult part of the whole process. Well, it looks awful. I am going back to square one again with this circle, and if I don't get that right, everything's going to lead off wrong from it. This clock face is a series of concentric circles and parallel lines and correct angles, and it's just a bloody nightmare to get it correct on a deadline. I think I should stop going on about that now, don't you?
With the clock face finally done, I can start on something more meaty.
I want this to start looking now like a three-dimensional tower coming from the pavement and up out of the pavement. I want the colour to blend precisely in tone and colour with this wall so that it looks like one going down. To cover a large area fast, I'm not going to use chalk, I'm going to use powder. I just sprinkle it on and then rub it on with this polystyrene. As much as anything, I want to do this to build some confidence in myself that this drawing is actually working, because so far it's just been a struggle. Ooh. I'm going to chuck in some of the other brown in a minute, so that, like those bricks, there's a certain amount of variation within it. Hello, Mr. Pigeon. Oh, yeah. Day one is always the biggest struggle, because all the difficult headwork has to be done first. Now, the next step I'm going to do is look at this face of the wall and do pretty much the same thing on this 90-degree angle. This side of the tower is better lit than that side, so that it's slightly lighter. so that we have a light side and a slightly shaded side. That again will give it a bit more three-dimensionality. When I look up and see all these people crowding around and watching, it does bring back memories of when I used to do this as a busker on Oxford Street and other places, just for money in a hat. It's worth remembering that if you can survive by just getting money in a hat, it's because people like what you do. I would like to see some of the modern artists that are in the Tate Modern come out onto the streets and make money in a hat with their artwork.
London's guerrilla art has its roots in graffiti, but due to crackdowns by local police and councils, artists are being forced off the streets, even when the walls are legal, like this graffiti jam in Turnham Green.
This is a Hall of Fame, so it's been painted for the last 21 years.
A Hall of Fame is a legal spot where you're allowed to paint and you won't get arrested.
Everybody needs somewhere to paint. And there's a lot of people. You'd be surprised how many graffiti writers there are.
Graffiti uses every type of art form known to man, like perspective, colour design, character design.
It's really interesting working on a massive scale and making massive areas of colour and shape.
Tagging is the most important part of graffiti. It's where people learn how to work their letters and get different styles, really.
And a lot of parks are getting shut down very soon, all the halls of fame. Purely, I think, because it's the Olympics and the government are trying to shut them all down so people haven't got anywhere to go to express themselves, and they're also emulsioning like all the track sides, so it's making it very, very hard.
Well, this wall's getting closed down in about 3 weeks.
It is forcing people to paint more illegally, and it is actually maybe turning them onto trying to approach the canvas side of it. You know, and approaching galleries and trying to do shows and maybe sell their work.
I'm on my second day, but the weather hasn't been kind to me or my drawing.
There was quite a lot of rain last night, and this morning you can see the water all over these covers I put on. These covers are never foolproof, so remains to be seen what's underneath there. I suspect it might all be pretty wet. This is the bit people don't see when they look at my website or in my portfolio. They don't see all the background hassle and difficulties and boring bits. So here we go. I'll try and get this off in one nice movement so the water flows off the drawing and not onto it. Actually, at first glance, it looks remarkably well preserved. Still a lot of heavy cloud around, and worst of all, the weather forecast is not good for this afternoon. So there we are, on the same points as yesterday. All set up, ready to go.
I need to get going. The first job of the day is working on the clock face detail.
It is lovely to be working in front of such an amazing backdrop of St. Paul's, but when I'm actually concentrating on what I'm doing, I could be anywhere because I'm really not aware of what's around me. I'm now blocking in the white background to the clock face, which is good. It starts to feel like it's progressing again. I also feel so free when this clock is done.
With the clock face finally out of the way, I move on to the painting's pièce de résistance, my homage to an iconic silent movie hero.
Now I've outlined in white chalk the body of Harold Lloyd hanging on the clock. The idea of this drawing is that we'll also be able to have a real person interacting with him, maybe trying to reach down to Harold Lloyd. It works because Harold Lloyd over there is very close to the camera, and so he doesn't have to be drawn very big to see him big. Whereas I am a long way from the camera, and even though I am big, I look small. So in that way, the little man and the big man look the same size. And that's what these perspective tricks are all about. These shoulders and arms on the outer side will be quite light blue because all the light's hitting them from out here. And then on the inside along here, I'll do them a darker blue, where there's not so much light hitting them. That way, they will look like three-dimensional arms. I have to be careful now about rubbing it too much with my fingers, because that finger, that thumb, and that middle finger have all split. They've all got little cuts in them from too much rubbing. Still a bit tall. Have to look in there. Tiptoes. Hands are another of those things that have to be done exactly right and that can easily be done wrong. So I'm ready to spend quite a bit of time on this. I don't expect it to be spot on first time. Hands are difficult because they're a part of the human body that we all recognise very easily, and yet they're actually very complicated. There's a focal point now, there's a central person that you can relate to, and the whole thing takes on a totally different meaning, and I'm getting quite excited about finishing it. I've certainly attracted a bit of life here on Peter's Hill. There's a nice circle of people all looking at my work, which is always nice.
In the crowd, I notice a couple of guys who look like every street artist's enemy number one.
Are you working for the council?
Yeah, we have to remove graffiti and, you know, anything offensive, anything like this if it's not got permission.
Is there a lot of graffiti in London?
Loads of it.
And so if someone hadn't got permission to draw, you'd just come and wash it off, would you?
Jet it away.
And have you ever got rid of any famous graffiti?
Yeah, a couple of Banksies.
Didn't you feel bad that you were destroying an artwork?
Stuff like that, fantastic. Really like it myself, but that's my work. I've got to do it.
And was this when Banksy was already a famous artist?
Oh, yeah. There was some woman going, but it's worth thousands.
What happens now it's raining?
Well, it's not raining. Don't say that. You shouldn't say that. It does your job for you if it rains.
Yeah, it's not the best time of year to be doing it.
Luckily, I've got permission for this one, so it won't concern you.
We just came to have a look. We've not been told to get rid of it.
You haven't been sent?
Nah.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
See you later, mate. Bye-bye.
People like this have forced a huge number of artists to go underground. Up there with Banksy, in London's guerrilla art scene, is D-Face, who also keeps his identity hidden. Guerrilla art incorporates hijacking major branding for publicity and identity, which D-Face famously did with his interpretation of the £10 banknote. He works from a studio and gallery in East London.
It's really exciting to see the work out there in the streets and the public domain. You can never beat that confrontational element of something that shouldn't be there, but it's got there. How have they got it there? How have they put it there? I think that works. It always inspires me when I see that happening. I think the thing about street art is it's not defined by one thing. It can be anything. I mean, the point is you can put it in the streets. It can be sculpture, it can be illustration, it can be graphic, it can be painterly. It doesn't have to be one thing or the other. It's whatever the artist chooses for it to be. And the great thing about the streets that the gallery can never do is that it's free to anybody to do. You know, there's no curator involved. There's no one saying this is right, this is wrong. You know, it can be anybody can go out and do it. And I think more people should do it. Central working area, two things I'm working on at the moment. This is the fuselage of a missile, and it's going to slip over a bollard. And then another thing I'm working on here is I've been buying these like dummy CCTV cameras and then f***ing them up, basically. This is still being worked on. And then I'll go and install that in a spot. There's a doorway that's a couple of roads away that's like tagged and destroyed, and I think it'll look really nice in its environment. It's like about observation, about how we're always observed, something like 40 times on film, an average journey across London. Essentially, I want things to run as long as I can get them to. I want them to last in the streets for more people to see them. But it's part of the course, you know, this is going to last 5 minutes because, you know, you could snap that off really easily. You could just take the whole thing off, even though it would be glued on place. But that's not the point of it. To me, it's a creative release. It's an outlet.
To support artists who have been forced off the streets, D-Face has set up a studio space where they can work. as well as a gallery focusing entirely on street art.
This is what it's really about. It's about finding the right artists and giving an elevation and trying to allow them to live as artists and allow the public to come to see it into an environment they can understand. We've got artists like Mysterious Owl doing the incredible Sulk, Haroon Hayward, who does these really intricate acrylic spray paint and gouache pieces. This is by an artist called Connor Harrington, who's, as you can see, a true master of his oil paints. I want the art form to survive as an art form for the long term and not just for the short term.
All ready for the third and last day on this. Usually the last day is the best day because everything's coming to completion. My only worry, as has been the case all through this project, is the weather. We've got huge clouds and there's again a dangerous forecast. What I'm doing now is marking in the Roman numerals around the dial. This isn't all that difficult because I simply have to centre them on the centre point of the dial here.
So how come when I crop it through a camera that it shows a more like strong perspective as opposed to just looking at it right now?
For one thing, you're looking at it through one eye and not two. Secondly, it's quite a wide lens so that it's making the perspective more extreme, so that if I cheat the perspective by drawing it distorted, it's a bigger cheat because the perspective is more extreme. What do you think of it?
It looks like you're actually looking from above down on the clock tower.
Could we have a word?
Hello.
I'd just like to have a chat, if you're chattable.
I am very chattable.
What are you doing?
I am, I have this art gallery over here. They have all my paintings inside it. What are you doing? You have a picture of Harold Lloyd kind of thingy.
Exactement, yeah.
It's very good. When you look through there, it looks really, really good.
Yeah, but when there's no camera, it's not as good.
No.
You need to have the camera there to look at it. Yeah.
Or look on the internet.
Yeah, or look at a photo of it. Yeah.
What did you do when it rained?
Cover it up.
Quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting towards midday, still time is pressing because there's all that landscape to do behind and the decoration on the building. Got another rain scout. If it's just a light sprinkling like this, it doesn't do too much damage, but once those spots start to join up and it becomes all generally wet, then it can really spoil a picture. But it is scary though when you've done 2 days' work and this starts to happen.
But a light sprinkle turns into a full-blown rain shower. I've got to get the drawing covered as quickly as possible.
Anybody help? Thank you. Thanks.
With the rain pouring down, I'm worried that the completion of Big Ben hangs in the balance.
It's a bit of a pisser when this happens.
Thankfully, it's just a passing shower, but with the never-ending prospect of rain, I've got to keep moving.
I'm going to go on to doing the background landscape, the Thames, the bridge over the Thames. This is just a very vague roof on this very vague building, which is very vaguely behind Big Ben. And now I'm putting in some very vague pedestrians standing on the bridge, walking along. Even though they're vague, it's still important that they appear vertical, so I'm using the string to send them all to the vanishing point underneath the camera. I'm just doing them all in grey so that you get an idea of them in silhouette. I'm not going into any colour, I'm not going into any detail. The weather's improved, so I think we're all set to have a nice result early this evening. What do you think of that, mate?
That's amazing, man.
Splendid.
Did you have a look through there?
Yeah, it looks proper real through there. It looks like it's dropping down.
Are you a graffiti man?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah, I do graffiti.
I've never done any of that, but it's interesting.
Yeah, that's much better.
Thanks.
I'm scared of heights, man, and that's making me feel dodgy looking at through there.
I'm just putting in now some of the ornamentation around this clock face. It starts to have a feeling of being the final touches. And then the miracle will have occurred, that this drawing is finished.
A crowd starts to gather, and I can finally reveal my finished 3D drawing.
We are then on Peter's Hill. It's the end of 3 days' work and the drawing is ready to show. It's going to be revealed here on this monitor. 1, 2, 3, yo! There we are, in 3 dimensions. Thank you.
Oh, it's so phenomenal.
And I think it's wicked.
You think it's wicked?
Yeah, really wicked.
It's only for fun. There's nothing evil about it.
And now it's awesome. I was
But
wondering.
you said it was awesome yesterday.
Of course, it's just getting more and more awesome.
That's
gradually.
the problem when you use a word like
Yes,
awesome.
true.
You don't have any extra words to go any
True.
further. It's been 3 long days of difficult technical anamorphic drawing, but finally, the miracle has happened. I've finished this drawing, which I never thought I would. The result, with Harold Lloyd hanging on that clock arm, is exactly what I was looking for. It really seems like he's hanging in space. So, London, I leave you my version of Big Ben.
Wanted to do and you haven't had a chance to do yet. And I just blurted out, I want to build a wooden boat.